Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Terrence Lee. Terrence is head of sales at Protecht Group, which is a leader in the governance, risk, and compliance software solution space with operations in Australia Pacific region, EMEA, and now North America. And Terrence also has been known as an evangelist of resilience and business continuity. So Terrence, thank you for coming to our interview today.
Thank you for having me, Boris. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Terrence, you have so very extensive career. Could you please tell us a short story about your career path? What brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at Protecht Group are up to these days?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I've spent most of my career working in the software space, and the last 15 years in particular working in governance, risk, and compliance vendors. I was part of the team that built the strategic BCP organization up, leading to the acquisition by SAI Global, led that line of business for a while. And I did the similar thing at Origami, and I joined Protecht this year to build their North American operation. The focus that I had earlier on in business continuity and resilience was really from a personal epiphany I had that many years ago, that all the planning and activities you do in risk management, they're really kind of pointless if you can't recover from an incident. And therefore, resilience is something that people should be focusing on heavily. And what led me to Protecht was their focus on the life cycle of risk, doing the basic things really, really well to mitigate and reduce risk to the organization. And the other thing that excited me about it was the company is run and behaves with a fantastic culture, like a 22-year-old startup. Has a very entrepreneurial spirit. Two co-founders are great, talented, and deeply experienced risk practitioners. I thought it would be an exciting opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. These 2 years have been very heavy on need to resilience and BCM solutions. Now we had pandemic, and probably every company need to have a specialist in this topic. And also now with the war and supply chain issues, there is a lot of need, I think, in the market for new approach. What do you think about it?
I think that the connectedness of risk is often misunderstood, or people don't often pay enough attention to how one particular event could impact operations in other locations in other countries. I think Americans in particular, in other countries, we learned this the hard way during the pandemic with supply chain issues, and there were few organizations prepared for the pandemic. And I think it was that event which really reinforced the need for better resilience and better enterprise risk management practices. And then further, this was, I think, really reinforced by the work by the Bank of England, where they focused on operational resilience, which has now moved into law. And I think, I think we're going to see a lot more of that spreading around the world at the standards level.
Mm-hmm. So what would be your kind of two or three major examples or takeaways from this event that we had? What would be useful for risk managers to implement when they start their journey, or maybe when they start a new role in the company related to resilience and BCM?
I think that what I think some people may not quite understand is that resilience is kind of the combination of business continuity management and enterprise risk management. It's not new. It's of course been around for a long time, but I think the focus on it is really the focus on the practices that make an organization resilient, and that they're the same types of things you do to provide risk management and risk mitigation. And those key processes in enterprise risk management, risk and control self-assessments, key risk indicators, incident management, control assurances, tracking issues and action items to address issues, and the attestations or confirmation and compliance activities, those are the key processes of risk management that I think if you do them well and you check and balance, you will make your organization more resilient.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you be able to kind of expand on what is exactly a life cycle of risk and what is risk in motion? Because your company is talks about a lot about the life cycle of risk and this all the ARM approach. Maybe
Sure.
You can, yeah.
To understand that, I think it might be helpful to talk just a minute about the background on why the company came together to basically understand the founder's story, which I personally think is really critical in any organization. The two practitioners came together and had worked together in a consulting organization in Australia, and they were doing risk management training, they were doing auditing, they were the real risk practitioners doing risk management activities in organizations. They did it at a consulting company together. And then a few years later, they came together to form Protecht Group. Protecht, the name, is the combination of protection and technology. And through their training and consulting work at Protecht Group, they then developed a software solution. The actual foundation of the software was in response to consulting work that they were doing at credit unions in Australia. And at the time, the credit union and the banking regulator, APRA, was increasing the regulatory oversight of those banks, similar to what was happening here in the early 2000s with regards to Sarbanes-Oxley and the Enron scandal and the things that drove more regulatory oversight on risks and controls. They developed this concept of risk life cycle to focus on the basics and to make sure that people understood how important it is to do risk and control self-assessments and have KRIs that are meaningful and tracked and maintained, and really to increase the culture of risk awareness in an organization using software and automation to make the process more easily managed. So the life cycle of risk acknowledges that risk is always in play, and that there is a life cycle and that there is opportunity in risk. It's not just something to be afraid of, and that through the processes in ERM of risk assessments, risk monitoring, and risk realization, if you will, incident management issues and actions, that you can manage that life cycle of risk and minimize impact to the organization and seek out opportunities for the organization to take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience with customers, what is the common problem they face with regards to the risk life cycle, and how do they solve it, or how you help them solve this issue?
That's a good question. I think that, if I had to pick one common problem or challenge that we see in customers when we start an engagement, it's around their level of risk maturity, which is how mature is their organization and their awareness and their culture around risk management. And you see this reflected in a couple of ways in particular. First of all, you need to have a solid foundation of what we call core libraries. That's your risk register, your control library, your causes library, the business unit structure, and how you tag or organize this core information for the rest of the risk management program to function properly. And what we find is that in many organizations, they don't have those things. They may have a risk library, but they may not have a control library. And they may not have, for example, control owners and control self-assessments in place yet. And that's where I think we add the most value in helping them establish that program from the beginning, guiding them through the process of ERM activities, risk assessments, risk monitoring, and risk remediation. And I think that helping them increase their maturity through their risk journey over time is what makes them stronger organizations, more resilient, and reduces their risk.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So you have outlined a number of critical ARM processes, such as risk and control self-assessment, KRIs, and control testing. Where do you see the market moving in over the next 5 years?
Well, I've been in the GRC space for some time now, and I think the main change that I've seen, if I could, put my finger on one thing, I'm setting aside the discussions around operational resilience and how prominent that's become in risk circles these days for good reason. I think that the answer is that companies are relying less and less on technical teams to deploy and maintain risk management software solutions. And what I mean is that 10 years ago, a GRC implementation would have 15 or 20 people on a project, and it would take 2 years, and it would cost $500,000 or more, and it was essentially a massive software engineering project. That type of behavior in the GRC market started to disappear in, I would say, probably in the 2013, 2014 time period. And I think that is the maturing that we're seeing now. They're relying less and less on technical teams to deploy and manage the software. And that means they're relying more on the practitioners, that second line of defense staff. So they need tools that they can truly configure by themselves without being programmers or software engineers, do it quickly and effectively, and then continue using those tools because they're simply tools to help them accomplish a task. We see this with very small organizations, and we see this with large global organizations as well.
Fantastic. I would like to ask you a personal point of view.
Yeah.
What is the commonly held belief or misconception as it relates to business continuity or your space of ARM, like ARM, that you strongly disagree with?
Let's see. A commonly held belief that I strongly disagree with. I would have to say that the strongly held belief that I disagree with is the way that organizations test or exercise the scenarios that they believe can disrupt their business. I don't think the business does it well. I think that tabletop exercises as a tool are fantastic. But what I mean is, I don't think that organizations are investing enough in actually doing that testing, because I don't think that there's really any other way to determine your resilience, your ability to recover from a risk incident, other than through testing and scenarios. So if you don't take it seriously, and if you don't do it well, and I don't believe many of the software systems do it well, and I think it's because it's extremely complex. It's extremely hard to do. And I think culturally, it's hard to get a group of people into a conference room and then have them really focus on a scenario of disruption and walk through it in real world terms. It's creatively just an extremely difficult thing to do. So I think as people get better and better at resilience scenario testing, they'll start to get more and more value out of it.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's very kind of, because these questions kind of can understand as what you actually for, because there is a mainstream and there is some specific things that you really tune in. So it's kind of very interesting. So maybe if we can understand a little bit, what's something you or your team have recently achieved that you are really proud of?
Well, the team here at Protecht in North America, I'm really proud of the way they've come together. It's a new team. They're risk practitioners, lots of experience. Some of them come from other GRC software vendors, but not all of them do. And the way the team has really come together, dug in and learned the product, and within a matter of weeks, they're able to do product demonstrations and talk about the product, which I think highlights its ease of use and its configurability. I'm super proud of the North American team and the global support that the Protecht organization has provided them. The training that we have done for product training for the new hires here in North America was actually led by our CEO and co-founder, David Bergmark, and it was fantastic. It was second to none.
Great. So if we summarize it, if someone who is listening to this interview would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would that be?
I would hope that they would walk away from listening to the podcast. I would hope that they would have a better understanding of the key processes in ERM, and that it's, it sounds simple. It's really not. It can be complicated, but doing the basics, focusing on that risk life cycle, the basics of RCSAs, KRIs, incident management, controls assurance. If you get those really right, you're going to do very well in risk management. The advancement of some of the technology, it might be interesting, but if it's not adding value to those core fundamental key processes of enterprise risk management, then you need to question why you're digging into it. So I would hope people would get a better understanding of ERM key processes and reach out to me to talk about their risk management programs.
Fantastic. I ask this question all of my guests because I'm running global risk community, and we are a community of more than 25,000 people, and also we have a large email list. So from our point of view, how can we contribute better to understanding this complex world of risk? What we can do better?
Well, I think it's organizations and services like yours that make the practice, that really make the practice better. And that's through sharing ideas, sharing best practices, and sharing real world use case examples. I think that's what makes the practice better. Everyone in this space, they really tend to come together strongly and support each other because they're doing the same things in different countries and in different companies. And we all have a lot to learn from each other.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So maybe the last question, we have still some time. So for example, if we take, I don't know, I didn't ask you, I think about it. If we take a life of risk manager, an average, if there is one thing that they should start prioritize right now, what would it be from your point of view?
I would say, well, two things, if I may. One is work with your KRIs. Really use your key risk indicators. Many organizations put them up there, use them in a risk management program, and only look at them once a quarter when they're getting ready for board level reporting. They're part of the life cycle of risk that need to be monitored on a daily or regular basis. And then the second thing I would say is, when you're reporting to senior management about risk, avoid vanity metrics. Use the metrics that are legitimately going to reflect the posture of the organization on risk and what is actually going up or going down as far as risk to the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you. That were all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you, maybe you want to add something, please go ahead.
Yeah, if I can, there's a lot of focus on cyber risk in the marketplace for a lot of really good reasons. The situation with breaches isn't getting necessarily any better. The Service Employees International Union breach earlier this year, the Cineverse breach in September of 2021. This is kind of the state of the union these days. And there are there's effective ways to prevent those types of breaches. You can do asset inventories, you can do vulnerability assessments, but really they come down to training and educating people in the organization. And it really comes down to doing the basics in risk management well all the time: audits, compliance, security posture assessments. But that ongoing increased awareness of risk management in the organization, it's the one thing that I believe long-term is going to protect organizations better.
All right. Thank you very much, Terrence. It was very interesting to understand what you guys do in Protecht Group and speak to you personally. And I hope in the future we will continue more specific topics, discussion on more specific topics.
Thank you, Boris. It was great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.